the answer it's always going to start with the what exactly are we trying to train them on? How would you convert that into a benefit for them? What's in it for them? That's the first question. Why am I doing this? That's what we all think when we're pushing to change. Taking the script and saying, let's not go into the what or the how. Let's first go into the why. If you cannot position the why, then why are you inserting change into your organization? But now you have a push from the industry and also for the guest. The guest is going to expect faster improvements or changes because, ChatGPT used to change every 6 months. Now ChatGPT changes every 4 months. So people are used to this rapid change in the experience that they have with a system or with a provider. They're going to expect the same out of hospitality. When you onboard people into a hotel, which is what we see, we always teach them about the culture and we teach them about the department, but do they have the foundational knowledge to do their jobs?
What's up, hospitality? 79% of hotels report staffing issues, and 22% of those are reporting that it's a critical issue for them. And while there are many reasons why this is happening, we cannot or may not be able to solve all of them, we need to think about solutions on how can we work with what we have. So for me, it's pretty obvious that we need to discuss learning, development, onboarding, and everything that it is to prepare our staff to be ready for the workplace. We need not only to be more efficient, more consistent, but also adapt to the new needs of Generation Z. They are used to digitalization. They are used to a different way of learning, and we need to adapt. So to talk about that, I invited Karla Kannan to talk to me directly from Miami. Karla, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Karla, you've been in hospitality for over 20 years, 10 years at the Four Seasons, 10 years at Birch Street Systems. Do you work with roles in tech, learning development? Now you are a business owner at Chimera and consulting with hotels and helping them with technology and with implementation. Did I miss anything?
No, you captured it very well.
What took you to hospitality?
Well, the true story about that is I couldn't find a job. I got out of college and I did what everybody did, which was apply, submit an email or submit your resume like that. And I realized it was not working. So it was the coldest day of the year in Chicago. And I thought, what about if I go old school and I go for a hotel job because I speak two languages. So I figured that would be enough. And it's easier to get a job when you have a job. So I went and I knocked on all the hotels on Michigan Avenue. And the last one I knocked on was Four Seasons. And that was the start of my career. And once I got into hospitality, that was it.
And wow, that's quite amazing because you just got the job because you needed something. You needed a job, but you end up staying. What made you stay?
Hospitality is one of those industries that gives you so much. You are working with so many different departments in one single environment. Yes, you can work into a tech company or manufacturing and you're probably going to deal with other departments, but they're never going to be as diverse as hospitality. You're having people that are cooking and they're doing all this amazing food artwork. And then you're having the housekeeping team that are the hardest workers in the industry, if you ask me. And then you have the way that the front desk handles customers. I mean, it's just such an array of different perspectives coming together and they all work toward the same goal, which is to create an experience for their clients, for their guests, I should say.
That's awesome. And it's true, right? Like I said, the hospitality is such a passion, right? In the end, when you fall in it, it just basically, there's something that holds us because you cannot experience what we experience in hospitality anywhere else. And it's fantastic. And you started Four Seasons and there was a big change on the way that people learn from the last 20 years. Well, what was different back then?
Well, first something that has shifted is that people went to school to learn hospitality. It was truly a career or a call that you had. And so you went to hospitality school and then you got into hospitality. There's still some of that for sure. But post-pandemic, what happened is that a lot of people in hospitality left hospitality. It was one of the most impacted industries, one of the first ones and most impacted. And then after that, the people that got into hospitality were doing it just like I did because they needed a job. So they didn't really have the training, and they got in there and had to learn on the go, which nothing bad about it. But you also are looking at an industry that doesn't have as many people as they did pre-pandemic, right? So it has slowly been shifting to create more efficiencies and reduce labor and put automation, which is all nice and good. But now people don't really have the time to train other people on the job, to have all that shadowing. And there's still very strong programs out there, but time is finite. There's not enough time in the day of those that know the job to train others. So there's an expectation to either come with that knowledge or just grab it as fast as possible.
That's true. And it's a pressing issue, right? Like there's so many managers that saying that they don't have time for anything, right? Even when it comes to, I hear a lot from consultants. Consultants kind of telling us that hoteliers don't have time to hear the solutions that they are bringing to them. And the solutions normally is to give time back, right? But they don't have time to listen to them. And they have all that pressure with staff and training and then the rotation, right? The turnover that happened. Do you see any solution on this puzzle?
Well, true. Every time that, as a consultant or even somebody that is implementing a system goes in, the first thing you hear is like, oh boy, I already have so much to do. Here is another thing you're adding to my bucket. Even if long-term that's going to save them time, the perception is you are creating more work for me. And immediately that creates resistance. It's normal, right? Change always has or elicits fear one way or another. But I think it does merit us looking at how we can have an ongoing training program for any system that you implement. One of the things that I do in my business is really consider around the entire experience. What is this employee or this user of a particular system going to go through? Because if you don't factor in all the things that they do, and then you just throw a system at them, the first problem you're going to have is an issue with adoption. So yes, you want to give them time back, but you also want to mimic the motions that they're going to go through with that particular system. So it takes understanding how you're going to affect the employee or the user. And second is also understanding how would you convert that into a benefit for them? What's in it for them? We're adults. We don't learn by me telling you, hey, draw circles all day long, like when you were in kindergarten and you're like, all right, circles all day long. You're going to ask me, why do I have to draw a circle? That's the first question. Even if you don't ask me, you're thinking, why am I doing this? That's what we all think when we're pushing to change. So it's really taking the script and saying, let's not go into the what or the how. Let's first go into the why. And I think that that's where you get people to understand the benefit. If you cannot position the why, then why are you inserting change into your organization?
Yeah, it's the Toyota work, right? Like ask 5 times why and try to find a root why you're doing something. And yeah, it's quite amazing that this shift and this moment that we are right now, that is, I feel that we are just a bit lost on what we should prioritize and what we must do, be able to actually deliver the experience that we want to deliver, right? There's so much coming as experiences and new ideas for hospitality, but we need the people to be able to deliver that experience. We designed this experience thinking that we were like 10 years ago with all that power that we had, and now we need to rethink and at least how can we train people more efficiently and fast. And this is what we are going to try to figure it out a little bit here. And my first question would be like, hotel training should it be in person? Should it be like digital or a mix of both? How can we blend this strategy?
Well, the answer it's always going to start with what exactly are we trying to train them on? An example of this, and it's simple, is I work with hotels, I think it was last year. And when I went to visit them, I realized that hotel, the purchasing manager, didn't know financial concepts. Now, this is not a demerit to the individual. He was not coming from the industry. Also, he didn't go to school for it. But those concepts were incredibly important for that individual to understand how using technology was going to really help him. So the first step is to think about what basis do we need? Like, what is the foundation that we need on this employee? Can that be done in a way where it's scalable? And where we talk about scale, it's always going to be digital. because when you onboard people into a hotel, which is what we see, we always teach them about the culture and we teach them about the departments, but do they have the foundational knowledge to do their jobs? There are going to be departments that need to have it, right? And there's others that you assume they should have it. Financial concepts is one of those ones that is very tricky. Do they know what a balance sheet is? Do they know what is an asset versus what is, a direct expense? If they don't know this kind of information, then implementing a financial or procurement system is not going to resonate with them. So understanding what we're trying to teach them, how we're trying to do that, it's something that you have to take into the onboarding. You don't want to spend a lot of money onboarding employees because that's labor, that's time, and this is not scalable. You're going to depend on people training other people. So if it's a concept or if it's a process that is consistent, then I will recommend doing this in a way where it is delivered electronically for sustainment. If you're doing an implementation of a new system and it's more hands-on, let's think about, for example, inventory management. It's very hard sometimes to grasp those concepts because inventory is a process that you do constantly. But I can assure you that you teach the employees that month and then you leave. And the first time they have to do month end, they're looking at each other and be like, what were we supposed to do? And then the blind starts leading the blind. So there are certain concepts or certain processes that are best done with, on-site. So you can understand, you can show them, you can do it. So it's not a one size fits all, but I will say that regardless of whether the first one was on-site and you went there and you taught them, or you did it a few times, you have to have a sustainment program. And the only way that you can sustain it and make it scalable is if you have a digital component of it. That includes also the documentation, includes reference guides, but it follows, again, bits of information because this is the TikTok generation. Nobody's going to sit there and watch an hour of content, little bits of information that speak to a particular process and that can be easily referenced.
Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying this show and if you are learning something new today, please consider following the show, subscribe to our channel, or leave us a review. It helps us to help more people through the podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we're back on the chat. So interesting the way that you say, and something that you said that really clicked, connecting to the event that was in Nice last month. And one of the speakers said, you cannot digitalize a process that is non-existent. When it comes to training, it looks like that some of the hotels are so used to in-person training that they just trust that training happens from either the manager, but if the manager is not available, the superior, the immediate superior will be able to train that person, and that person will be ready to deliver the service that they expect. But consistency is a big problem when you change the human side, right? So it's really important to basically, as you said before, create the system and then find solutions that you can bring digital solutions to help and make that training strong, consistent, and deliverable. But as you said, small, short, that they can keep the attention.
Well, I think we're already seeing it. By nature, hospitality has always been slower to adapt technology. And I don't blame them. And this is something that for providers of technology, sometimes is difficult to grasp. Why are you moving so slow? And it's because the impact on the guest experience is immediate. You put a system that doesn't allow to check in because it wasn't implemented correctly. What do? Revert to pen and paper? So there's an immediate effect. And then you have to immediately recover, because you get a glitch, dreaded glitch in hospitality. So you have to be very careful of how you implement technology. But what I see the shift coming is now you have AI, right? It is the buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. And everybody's asking, what AI are we going to put in? Or trying to push for AI without really having an outcome in mind. Which, please don't do that. Think about what you're trying to solve and if AI is the solution for it. But in this push, this technological push, we're seeing a lot of the technology vendors trying to compete to what is going to be a better sell, which I don't blame them for that. But now you have a push from the industry and also for the guest. The guest is going to expect faster improvements or changes because, ChatGPT used to change every 6 months. Now ChatGPT changes every 4 months. So people are used to this rapid change in the experience that they have with a system or with a provider. They're going to expect the same out of hospitality. The only nuance in this is that hospitality at heart is about people. It's about the people and it's about the experience that you deliver to your guests. So that should not be lost in the changes that we're seeing. But I do expect that they're going to start dabbling in different technologies. One of them, hopefully, is how we onboard and how we create programs for sustainment with the onboarding of their employees. I think that is very important because no technology will succeed if you do one-time training and nobody touches it again. Because you have so many people coming in and out of the industry, they transfer, they change, they get promoted, or they just leave. You cannot rely on that person that you were talking about, Mauricio, that you're relying on this person giving training. That person might not be there. And also, please, if you do have people that are really good at doing that, incentivize them. Implement a program like a standards coach, if you may, that is part of the role and not an addition on top of everything else they have to do. Because believe me, it's a small investment that you have to do in this, but relying on people will be problematic. So the idea will be to invest in the systems. That's where I see things going.
That's very interesting to think that relying on people is going to be hard. I have a feeling that hotels should start targeting career when they start turn 30, 35, and then they think about a career when they start to settle, when they start to think about a family. But before that, we should already plan that the staff is staying about 6 months or 1 year, and they are rotating, they are traveling, they are gaining experience, they are learning other cultures. But once, if you are a very good employer in that period, maybe they will consider you when they return, and will return with a large baggage of experiences, knowing people, being able to treat the guest. So that's one thing that I've been pushing, and I love that you mentioned that the trust with the person. And you mentioned about AI as well and onboarding, right? So if we would think about manuals for the onboarding, would they be still necessary, or how detailed should they be when you have now AI systems that can actually chat with you and maybe giving you the answers that you need on the spot?
Well, one thing to remember is we don't all learn the same way. Some people learn by listening, some people learn by watching a video, and some people learn by doing, or a combination of them all. So you have to think about all the different components that go into adult learning. And when you design these programs, having videos and these short frame videos are very good. But if you have ever tried to replicate a recipe, like you watch this recipe about a cake, whatever, and you say, I'm going to make that, having to pause step by step to figure out what they're doing becomes annoying. So the idea of a video is for you to see the overall flow of it, but then the materials that accompany that are very good for you to reference at a pace. So I say it's a combination of both, because having the recipe written and at the same time be able to watch the chef or whoever is cooking do the process is very interesting. You can see some technique, but then you also can go step by step. So I see it's both. And I've seen a lot of technology now coming out, where you can create an avatar and you put the script and that avatar will now train you, but you also need to have documentation to accompany it. So please do not underestimate the value of having still those manuals. The trick here is to make sure that they're concise and that they are intuitive. Because if it's just a bunch of words or 3 pages of content, no one is going to look at that.
And they are updated constantly, right?
That's so important. They're living documents. They do not start stagnant, because as your software, as your processes, as your guests evolve, so should your documentation and your videos.
And you mentioned just before about the training, that once you cannot just do one training and expect that they will already know everything from then. So how frequently do you think that training should be done with the staff?
Well, I think every hotel has differences. You are going to have seasonal hotels where basically your entire staff might be brand new. So that you might want to do it, at the beginning of the season, just before you do your opening. But if you have a regular hotel, and I was just talking about it this morning, I work in this hotel in Chicago, and my God, the employees are still there. And I love going there because the same employees I worked with, so many years ago. But that's very unique. A lot of times you go to hotels and the staff that was there is not there 3 months. The shift has been pretty large. So you have to think about it. I will say make it consistent and also make it resonate with the respective departments, because if you give the same training to everyone and they don't use that process or that technology, then they're going to disregard the training next time. They're going to say, why would I go there? I didn't learn anything that was useful for me. So it's about understanding the personas that you need to train and make that useful. If training is not useful, people will stop participating in it.
But that's very good. let's repeat that. If training is not useful, people stop participating. So be selective on what you use in your staff time, because it is time in the end of the day, and we just move time forward. And Karla, if I would ask you to help us with a step-by-step to help an independent hotelier. So let's picture that you are being hired, can be as a consultant for independent brand who needs help with creating a learning and development, a training, onboarding system for their staff. Which steps would you help them to implement?
First, let's start by understanding what is the problem that we're trying to solve. Because from a consulting perspective, we tend to jump very quickly into what we have done before or where we think there's value, but that might not be where the hotelier sees the success or what the immediate problem they're trying to assess. So I will say the assessment first is to understand what problem are we trying to solve or what challenge are we trying to overcome. Once we do that is understanding the staff. Do we have within the staff people that can be champions because they have adopted technology or processes in the past very successfully? Let's bring those people to the conversation and they can help us deliver that strategy. Invite people in the operation. I mean, we tend to just go with the executives and they tell us everything and then we're like, yay. And then it doesn't resonate with the end user. Why would it? Nobody factoring their day to day. So invite those people into the conversation to draft a strategy. And then you always know who is going to resist it because you've seen it before, sometimes the culinary team. So you already know who is going to, and I love the culinary team, but you already know sometimes where the resistance will come because you're going to impact their roles, because you're changing something fundamental, because they might be perceiving it as more work on top of everything they have to do. So also bring those people to the conversation. What are some of the objections that you see in what you're trying to modify, change, or add? And once you have that, then start communicating what is the path, where are we going, and make that a conversation on your stand-up meetings, town halls, board of ops, whatever you guys are doing to communicate with your staff. There's nothing worse, and I've done that, when I was a vendor of technology, that you will go there for the first day of training and the staff had no idea what this was because they had, what are we learning today? And the fact that it was the first day of training and no one knew what I was doing, immediately the outcome is resistance. So communicate. Don't over-communicate. Communicate with purpose. Make sure that they understand what's in it for them. Why is this going to be beneficial? And set KPIs. How are we going to measure success from the point of view of the hotelier? That's going to be very different from what we think. So I like to always assess what is success here. So at the end of the training or post-training and 30 days after, we can measure if that was truly achieving what we set out to do.
Amazing. And would you implement practical training and theoretical training, digital training? What type of tools would you use?
Yeah, so again, it depends on what we're training. If it's something that is going to be a process that is with concepts that are very challenging, the first one might be done on site and then document after that what we did for them to sustain it with new hires or people that come into that position. If it's the first time we implement the technology, I will say definitely go on site because you're going to learn a lot. And this technology, the aim is to continue to use it so you can take a lot of the learnings. If it's something that is pretty standard, easy to use, not modifiable, maybe you can arrive at a digital program with a short video content supplemented by documentation. But when it's the first time that you do it, unless this is the only hotel that is going to use it, if it's going to be in waves or a set of hotels, the first time on site is very valuable to understand the dynamics.
And how important is recognition after training? Should the hotels recognize that they are learning something after they learn, even if it's just an operation of the hotel that they will have to learn anyway? Do you think that would be important that is the employee get recognized by that new skill and how they could do that, how they could recognize?
Yes. I mean, we all like to have a little something. So you're not always going to get a certification of some sort. It could be a badge that you learn. It could be something that you can add to your resume. I mean, I always encourage people, hey, you learn a new technology, add it to your LinkedIn profile because now that's also a currency of value that you have. Or it can simply be a diploma. I think back in the day, we used to do diplomas for hotels. Internationally, I know we did that a lot because it carry a lot of value, especially in the Middle East. We will give them diplomas and it was a sense of accomplishment. You want people to feel that this is positive. And if that positivity carries with them, feeling that the organization invested in them is so important. When you just push anything, a process or technology into the employee, it's negative. But if instead you said, this is how we're going to help you, and now that you have learned it, you can continue adding value, and we invested in you, it's so much more impactful.
Awesome. Love that. I love that. I love that. I also think that is super important, that piece of recognition, for two reasons. One is that recognition itself, right? The feeling of recognition for the staff. But I believe also that there is a career perspective, that once you learn something, you are mostly, I hope so, you are grateful for whoever taught you that new skill, or whoever taught you, that gave you the opportunity to learn something. But after maybe 4 months, 6 months, that becomes a skill that belongs to you already. And it's really hard to remember where you learned that skill, right? Like after 1 year in the job, you don't even know what you learned in that job anymore. You just assume that you knew all that before, right? So I think that's also very important for career perspective, to understand, like, wow, like they gave me so much and I don't even know. But if you're giving like kind of little diplomas, little certificate, or just a recognition badge, as you said, for each skill that they learn in the job, I believe that creates a stronger bond between the hotel and the staff, the hotel and the associate as well. So I think that's super important, that piece of recognition. And like, if we would move now to a little game of predicting the future. All right. It's a game. All right. We are not trying to hit the hammer here and saying this is going to happen. So it's really, really a game. We cannot predict anymore 2 weeks ahead. So let's just imagine in the world that we could. All right. And if we would think going forward, what new skills and competencies you think that will become really relevant and essential for hotel staff as the guest expectations and technology evolve?
That's a tough one. I know everybody's going to think, learn AI, but AI is such a broad concept. People use ChatGPT and they're like, I know how to use AI. But is AI going to be relevant for your job? They can say, well, it's going to take your job. May or may not, right? I don't think we're there yet, but it can help elevate your job. What I will say is, regardless of what you do or what role you occupy in hotels, invest in yourself by training, staying up to date in whatever you do, because that's how you will elevate your career. So what I see is employees looking to upgrade their internal software, meaning that they invest in their training, whether it's, free courses or training online, whatever is it that they do. I do see that. I don't say go jump and get a degree or a master's. And that's a huge investment, and it's hard to sustain when you have a job like hospitality, which is a lot of hours. But you can do that with certifications, with a little bit of course training. I will see more of that because it's accessible, where before you had to pay a lot of money, and now it's very accessible. And I think on the employer side, to retain employees in hospitality, because again, it's an investment. When you train them and then they leave, it's bad. It's money walking out the door along with the individual. I see hospitality investing in succession planning, something that they did before the pandemic, and I hope it comes back, because feeling valued is at the core of any relationship. And if an employee feels valued, they are more likely to stay in a job. And to feel valued, they have to feel that the employer is invested, right? So that story that you said about the intern saying, I'm out of here because you didn't give me the job. Yeah, they felt that they were invested, but probably too soon. Realistically, what we all want is to know where we're headed. And that has to accompany the skill sets that we need to get to the next role. So if I know that I'm here and to get to the next step, I need to learn this other thing, then I hope that my employer would either support my endeavors in learning this new thing, or give me the training, or make it part of my compensation package to have a little bit of money to get trained myself. So I see that going, because retention is going to continue to be a problem as people look at the potential of roles outside of hospitality being probably better in terms of pay, but the gratification you get to work with people, if that's truly your passion, it still remains with hospitality.
Awesome, Sad. If you could give now an advice or a message of inspiration to the hotelier, the independent hotelier, that they struggle a little bit more than others, right? What would you tell them?
Yeah, the independent hotelier, those boutique hotels, they don't have the army of people that your larger brands have. So everything is pretty bootstrap, or you make it as you go. I will say make time to rely on your technology or your providers. See them as partners and help them by helping you navigate waters where you might not know. You'll find a lot of that. I did that throughout my career when I was in procurement, and they become partners for a very long time. I can tell you, I have called some recently and they still remember me from so many years ago, because the value of that partnership is that I rely on them on things that I didn't know or what I didn't know, but they showed me where I could go. And they work with the larger brands. So why not lean on them for that? So I will say an advice is lean on your vendors so they become partners is one. And the other one is if you are creating that culture, which they are because they are creating their own brands, even if it's at a smaller scale, if you're going to invest in your brand, invest in your people, because they are going to be carrying your culture, your values, and that's going to translate in the experience with your guests. So invest in them in a way that feels organic and sincere. And that really is about understanding how value will be for them. And the value that I see is in career paths and education.
It seems so logical, right?
You would think.
It seems so logical. It's funny sometimes why there is this struggle on understanding the value that people bring to hospitality. I struggle to understand why some hoteliers struggle with that concept.
Well, it's their first rodeo, like we say. So if it's your first rodeo, you don't know what you don't know. But lean on people that have walked that path. You'll be surprised at how many people are willing to help instead of just not answer. You'll be surprised.
Carla, that was awesome to chat to you. How can our audience get in touch with you and learn more about what you can do to help them?
Yeah, they can connect to me via LinkedIn. And then, Mauricio, I hope you can share there also some of the details when this gets posted. But LinkedIn will be the first place to find me. I'll be very happy to chat with people and have a conversation on how we can augment your onboarding experience for your employees, as well as how we can help you navigate the treacherous water of implementing technology into your hotels.
Carla, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did.
I did. Thank you so much, Mauricio. This was great.
Shilling, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.